So, we're going to have a panel today called Eyes Above the Commercial Revolution in Space Intelligence. We have a pretty incredible panel on here. I'd like to introduce you to Stephanie Salmon, Business Development at Spire, leveraging satellite based solutions for weather, maritime, and aviation intelligence. Ileisa Lambert, Head of Partnerships and Platforms at SkyFi, bringing Earth observation to a global user base, and Dr. Ruby Patterson, Chief Scientist at XMC, innovating generative financing for large-scale space infrastructure through the development of lunar helium-3 mines. So welcome, ladies. I'd like to give you a chance to further give your background and some of the work that your company's doing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Salmon, Business Development Manager at Spire, like Jen talked about. I've been with the company for a little over a year and a half, and previous background was actually Marine Corps Aviation, flying B-22s. Reason I actually ended up going to Spire was because I had a lot of conversations around a lot of the type of data that was on the high side when we were deployed and we were actually trying to get actionable intelligence data for where we were flying into areas of Africa and the Middle East. We actually couldn't receive that data. We didn't have intelligence agents that maybe we had one supercomputer and we couldn't share that data. And so if no one knows anything about Spire, we are actually the largest multi-purpose RF constellation that exists in low Earth orbit. We focus on radio frequency data that does a lot of different things that goes from collecting vessels all across the globe to aircraft, very bespoke weather, high resolution weather that's really changing the way we're analyzing climate change. And then we also do RF detection and geolocation. So looking at different emitters of interest that range from SATCOM phones and dark vessels that are, involved in nefarious activities to jammers and spoofers. So a little bit about me and excited to further discuss.
And then hopefully you can hear me well. I think it's good. My name is Ileisa Lambert. I run partnerships and commercial sales at SkyFi. My background is not as cool as Steph's, but a little untraditional. I actually started as a chemist, made my way into engineering, working for a large infrastructure company, and then somehow found myself in the geospatial world a few years ago. I started at SkyFi, and SkyFi, if you don't know, we have an amazing team that has hosted and set up this event, but we're an Earth intelligence marketplace. And that's always a mouthful to say, but I always like to compare it to like Airbnb and Netflix and Uber, as where we're creating this accessible marketplace for you to access satellite imagery, analytics, and we're not just changing the access to this data, we're actually changing how people use it. And so it's really exciting to be here today and let you guys learn more about SkyFi, and I'm excited to work with these amazing ladies on the team on the panel today. So I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Ruby Patterson. I'm the Chief Scientist of XMC. We are solely focused on the prospecting and mining of helium-3 from the lunar surface environment. Helium-3 is an incredible compound that we are going to mine from the shallow subsurface of the lunar surface down to about 3 meters. And helium-3 exists on Earth, but it exists in really small quantities, and it's really hard to get to. But it exists in vast quantities and is much easier to get to in terms of accessibility in relation to the surface on the moon. And helium-3 is intensely regulated. It's very expensive to get your paws on some of it on Earth. And so the way that we use it on Earth is for medical diagnostic imaging, for border security technology. It helps cool quantum computing qubits down to about 10 millikelvin, which is the operating temperature that they need to process at. And so we all know quantum computing is really taking off. So we're looking to bring back vast quantities of helium-3 to not only support that industry, but also to support nuclear fusion research and development, which is really taking off as well. So that's what we're all about. My background's in geology. Before I worked at XMC, I was a consultant in Southern California for a bunch of space startup companies. And before that, I was a Mars geochemist at NASA Johnson Space Center and was on the Curiosity rover science team. So it's been a really fun journey to get here, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about what we're into.
Thank you. So, given your incredible background and expertise, I'd like to start by getting your opinion on the state of commercial space intelligence. So, Stephanie, you're stuck sitting next to me. I'll start with you. What are the biggest commercial innovations in space-based intelligence today?
I think there's an easy one to start off with, which is the accessibility to space. And that kind of leads into a couple other points that I have. SpaceX has really revolutionized access to space, lowering the barrier to space. And the transporter missions that only started in 2021 have really been able to launch tons of startups and really advance technology in space drastically. That leads to two other points that I have, one being mega constellations starting to go up into space. And, at this point, SpaceX for Starlink has launched over 8,000 satellites at this point. And Spire, my company, we've launched over 200 satellites to date. And you're seeing more of this occur through many different companies, whether it's imagery, or it's RF like my company. And what that's doing is allowing us access to a lot of remote areas that we previously have not discovered and really been able to analyze what's going on, pattern of life. And we're gathering intelligence at a rate that we've never seen before. And the other point I have is space as a service, which is something we do at Spire. So we're a completely vertically integrated company. We design, build, own, and operate all of our satellites that we've launched to date, all 200 of them. And I think space as a service has drastically changed the technology that we're launching into space and the startups. A lot of companies that the advancement of technology is happening so quickly, and we're seeing it across such a broad spectrum of applications from we serve customers looking at wildfire detection to GHG SAT working greenhouse gas emissions to defense and intelligence as well. So a lot of different sectors are all benefiting from lowering the barrier and access to space.
Excellent. So, to follow up on a lot of that conversation, Ileisa, how has the accessibility of space intelligence changed in recent years?
That's a really good question. It's funny because when I started out at SkyFi 3 years ago, people were like, there's no way that you can bring satellite imagery and analytics to your phone or the web portal. It's like, you guys can't compete with Maxar, Planet, and the big players in the game. And we've made that a reality. With just a few clicks, you have access to satellite imagery, analytics, and real-time intelligence. And we have over 150 partners that we work with now. And funny enough, some of the big players in the game have leaned on us to build similar infrastructures that we've built at SkyFi. So in recent weeks, we've launched Planet Single Order Tasking powered by SkyFi. So sort of the SkyFi environment, but you have access to Planet data. And then within a few months, we're actually going to launch Maxar Connect. And so a similar white label version of SkyFi, but you'll have access to 30 centimeter data, 50 centimeter data. You'll have access to 3D models and analytics, all powered by SkyFi, but in a Maxar ecosystem. So it's so funny how we've sort of transitioned at SkyFi as sort of being this like step sister or step brother and sort of being this big player in the game.
That's awesome. And then, Ruby, what's an example of your company's technology that's making a huge impact?
So right now we are still in stealth mode. We're slowly starting to percolate out of stealth mode, but the way that we are trying to make a really big impact is through supporting the industries that I mentioned earlier in my intro. It's so important that we have robust border security. It's very important that we have access to helium-3 for nuclear fusion research and development. I mean, this is the future of clean energy, if that's something that you care about. It's also important that we get our hands on as much helium-3 as possible to support the quantum computing industry, which affects all of our lives and affects all of our industries here. So something that we're trying to innovate on is getting supply of a national strategic reserve of helium-3, essentially, to support all the business that everybody in this room does.
So I'm going to ask a question we haven't discussed. And we're going from a publicly traded company to a non-traditional company that has raised venture capital to stealth mode. So those are really varying types of company, types of capital. And how has it been trying to work with the Space Force or other government agencies? Where are you seeing it being helpful, and where are you finding roadblocks? Like, where are some areas where the Space Force in particular can emulate what's working?
Well, my company has not worked with the Space Force yet. We'd be super into that if anyone would ever want to partner with us. Like, I'm very open to some conversations. But ways that we've interfaced with federal space employees is a lot of our partners and a lot of our advisors have NASA heritage, myself included. So we come from that train of thought, but we're now trying to innovate and break the chains of the old traditional way of thinking when it comes to innovating in the space realm. One way that we are very excited about working with companies like Intuitive Machines, I don't know if anyone has heard of Intuitive Machines. They actually just landed their IM-2 lander earlier today, nicknamed Athena. It's a huge accomplishment. We're all really excited for them. But Intuitive Machines is doing a lot of badass stuff. Like, they recently acquired the entire LROC team, which is a camera team that's on the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. So we're starting to see these joint ventures that have never existed in the history of the space industry before. So it's terribly exciting. And so we're looking to also enter into some sort of joint venture partnerships akin to that. And so these things are in the works. Stay tuned. When we come out of stealth mode, I hope there will be fireworks blasting through your computer screen when you hear about all these updates. But for now, that's all I'll say. Thanks.
Very cool, and congrats to Intuitive Machines.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So now, switching a little bit, I want to discuss the role of AI and data analytics. So, Ileisa, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
How is AI and machine learning being leveraged in commercial space intelligence?
Oh, this is always a good question because this is what we've been focusing on internally. So I always like to say that AI and machine learning are like the glow up that the intelligence community needed. You definitely see it in all shapes and fathoms within the space intelligence space. I always like to say that it's like instead of viewing data, it allows you the data to sort of talk to you. So you're actually being able to extract interesting things from the data. I'm a big Aura Ring and 8 Sleep girly. I don't know if I have any Aura Ring or 8 Sleep people in the crowd. I see you raised your hand there. But when you think about Aura Ring or 8 Sleep, it's not like just tracking your data. It's like predictive analysis. And, it tells you, okay, your readiness score is a 70 today, so you're probably not going to have as great of a day. It predicts trends. Well, that's really what AI is doing for the Earth. It's helping you predict, natural disasters. It's helping you determine, air quality, water quality. It's helping you determine, in Steph's case, predicting shipping. Cargo ships coming in and out of port. So it's really helping you extract the features that you need and allowing the data to talk to you more so than just viewing the data. So I think it's something that we'll definitely see in this space over the next few months and even the next few years. So it's really exciting to see how we've leveraged this and not only our workflows, but also our fitness game, our sleep game, and also within the space community.
Very cool. So you mentioned what we're going to leverage over the next few years. So let's take it to the future a little bit and talk about what the future of commercial space intelligence looks like. All right, Stephanie, what's next? What developments do you foresee in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think I'll talk about one personally with Spire. I really hope to see more development in tip and queue. For those of you that aren't familiar with that term, that is looking over a vast area with a tip, or for instance, Spire often is using our RF data to tip something, an emitter of interest. It could be a SATCOM phone on a dark vessel. It could be a jammer, spoofer. It could be an illegal border crossing that we're picking up from a drone controller, and then you're queuing that in with a SAR or EO company to further refine and analyze that particular environment. We're also seeing this occur with multi-phenomenology and multi-sensors. And we're doing this on our platform, Spire itself. We have a recent AFRL StratFi contract where we have EO, IR, multispectral imagery, and then our RF wideband sensors that are all talking together to make sure we really, over a large area of coverage, are able to identify anomalous activity and then further scope that out. So that's an advancement I think a lot of companies are looking further into, and they're starting to collaborate on that front.
I'm seeing that too, so definitely. Ileisa, will the industry move toward real-time intelligence for mass users?
I actually think we're already sort of moving towards that. I mean, when you look at NASA, NASA's providing near real-time data. I mean, I work closely with Steph at Spire. I think you guys are providing real near-time AIS data. You look at other companies that we're partnered with. Umbra is providing SAR data within 4 to 5 hours after capture. I think this is only going to increase as you have increase in ground stations. You have onboard computing, which working with some AI companies and analytic companies that are doing that. So I think it's not even a matter of years. I think it's a matter of months until we have access to this real-time data.
That would be incredible change.
Yeah.
All right, Ruby.
Yes.
I'm going to shift towards some policy questions, if that's okay.
Sure, let's do it.
So, what regulatory or policy changes do commercial players face?
There are a few.
Challenges.
Yes, there's a few regulatory and policy challenges, definitely. So the Outer Space Treaty is basically the foundation of international space law, and that was formed way back, I think, in 1967. And so everything that you do as a commercial space entity has to be filtered through the lens of the Outer Space Treaty. But in direct opposition to that was the 2015 United States Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, which is a very interesting piece of legislation because it states that even though the Outer Space Treaty said, hey, the moon is for everybody, nobody owns the moon, we have to protect it at all costs, the Space Launch Competitiveness Act said, hey, you can actually claim rights to whatever you bring back from the moon. Whatever minerals or whatever resources you bring back, you own that. But that's just a United States law. And so there's a definite tension between these two pieces of legislation. And so that can turn off some investors who are very conservative, who may not want to tread into those waters. In addition to that, if a company is all set and okay to work in America, but then you now have to partner with an international company or an international governing body, it may pose some challenges with respect to, okay, who has the final say-so? Like, it's just our law versus your law, and it becomes very challenging to bridge the gap with regulatory things like that. So also, it's kind of like the Mad Max Wild West scenario in terms of space resources right now. There's really such little law and such little policy and governance with respect to what I'm doing at my job. So it becomes very important for people like me and for people like all of you in the audience who have a position of power within the space industry to go and speak with people who are drafting these bodies of work. So later this spring, I'll be formally addressing the United Nations Legal Subcommittee for the peaceful use of outer space and helping to, in real time, draft and forge these new ideas for how we should operate in the cislunar and lunar surface environment. This just doesn't exist yet, and it's so important to be involved from the very, very beginning in order to shape it in the way that's beneficial for commercial entities, because right now, commercial entities don't really have a voice on the level of the United Nations. So we're trying to change that and, form it to the way that we want it to go.
So following up on the voice of commercial and to some of the comments Kate alluded to in the beginning about in the past, we've tended to use exquisite assets that are government owned compared to now having the ability to procure either commercial hardware or commercial services. So Ruby, how do commercial companies collaborate or even compete with government and defense agencies?
Oh, okay, I'll give an example of each. So a way that we collaborate with government agencies is through something like the CLIPS program. So earlier I was cheerleading for Intuitive Machines that just landed Athena on the moon. Their Athena lander was a part of the Commercial Lunar Payload Services or Payload Systems program, or the CLIPS program. This is also the program that enabled Firefly to launch and land their Blue Ghost lander on the moon successfully. I think it was last week. This was also the same program that enabled Intuitive Machines to launch their first lander. And then it was also the same program that enabled Astrobotic to launch their lander, which unfortunately was not successful in making it to the moon safely. And so this was a really, really cool idea that NASA came up with in order to just infused so much energy and momentum into the commercial lander programs. And throughout this whole program, it's enabled tons of other companies that make instruments and drill augers and mass spectrometers and all of these who's-y what's-its and scientific widgets to go up there and show what they're made of and have this amazing opportunity to get on the moon and use it as a proving ground, where otherwise they wouldn't have been able to pony up the hundreds of millions of dollars that they would have otherwise needed in order to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. So the other part of the question was, how are we maybe competing with federal agencies? So this, I'll speak from personal experience. I was formerly a Mars geochemist at NASA, and when I was there, there was a real staffing crisis, and it's very hard for federal agencies to attract and maintain top talent because commercial space companies are paying more. It's more fun to work at them, and the speed of innovation is so much faster. It's like there is no comparison between the NASA work environment that I was in to now this really fun, whiz-bang, very exciting, light speed startup environment. And so, true, like there's different personality types that are attracted to each one, and you can probably tell by my charisma on stage, I probably am more preferential to one over the other. But NASA and other federal agencies, I know, are having a major, major staffing crisis because they simply cannot attract and maintain talent. So that is one way that they are directly competing with each other.
Interesting. It would be great to find a way for NASA to leverage our commercial talent rather than have to keep it in-house then.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, you're going to get the last question of the evening, and then I believe it's time for cocktails right after that. So I'm going to ask, what role do small satellites and emerging technologies play in this evolution?
I think it goes back to where I started, lowering the barrier to space, and CubeSats have really transformed a lot of the technology that has been launched into low Earth orbit. We operate 3U to 16U CubeSats, and we have solved and partnered with a lot of companies for a various amount of applications, from wildfire monitoring. We just got a contract to help facilitate that in Canada, to what I talked about for climate change analysis with greenhouse gas emissions. And recently, Monday, we just announced successful communication of 2 of our satellites doing optical inter-satellite link communications. And that's across 5,000 kilometers. Think from New York all the way over to London, that we had successful communication, which is just only increasing data transmissions in reliable and very, very quick ways. So I think you're going to see the access to space and data that, for instance, what SkyFi is offering on the market in an even quicker time period, which is going to give us more actionable intelligence and go from a couple of hours of tasking to a couple of minutes. And so I think companies that are miniaturizing technology and advancing what you can actually put in a CubeSat is going to drastically continue to change and revolutionize the technology that we're putting in space.
Excellent. Well, I would like to thank our badass space experts here on today's panel, and thank you all for sharing this time with us.